I'm Chris Erdmann, and this is Made of More, the show where we go beyond business to uncover real stories that shape entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, we explore the pivotal moments, the adversity faced, the risks taken, and the resilience found along the way. This isn't just about what people have built, it's about who they've become. If you're ready for inspiration, practical insights, and stories that remind you that you too are made of more, you're in the right place. Welcome to the show, Made of More. I'm Chris Erdmann, your host, and this is KKNW 1150 AM. And I'm here with a personal friend and also somebody that I really look up to because he's one of the best performance personal coaches that I've come across. He's going to say a little bit about, or quite a bit about it, because I'm going to get him to spill the beans on everything he does in this professional world. And so he is the co-founder and senior partner at the Bench Strategy, and also somebody that I listen to on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts is Staying Power with Ashley Knievel. Yeah. So welcome to the show, JD, Dr. JD Wyneken.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and congratulations on the show. This is a really fun thing that you're doing. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is my way of growing a little bit. And over the next year, I'm just hopefully getting better at being on the show and also public speaking. So, and I just got to thank you for opening an opportunity like this.
Oh, absolutely. It always is a learning curve. So be encouraged, right? Yeah. When I started doing podcasts about 4 years ago, I was doing them personally and then eventually moved into what I'm doing with the Bench Strategy and helping people develop podcasts. And it's always a learning curve, right? It's a journey of self-discovery, and it's not just about the podcasting itself, it's about how we show up in there, right? So how we show up in our own lives is how we show up on the air, all
everywhere.
Those kinds of things.
Well, what I've gone to learn in my 40s here is like life is full of learning curves.
Oh, yes. That never stops, even in your 50s.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, before we get started on everything, I just want people to know, what is the Bench Strategy?
Okay, that's a great question. The Bench Strategy is a performance coaching and consulting company that I co-founded with my business partner, and we work with both individuals and businesses to improve performance. Now, if that sounds like a really big, broad term, it is, and it's meant to. So on a personal level, I can work with people on how to improve their personal performance in life, however they define that.
So not just business, their personal world.
Sure, their personal world. Because we tend to think that the personal world and the business world are two different things, and they overlap. What happens in one blends over into the other, whether we want it to or not.
Yeah.
So how we perform in our personal lives or in our business lives is going to have an effect on the other side as well. And so we start with that premise, and we allow our clients to kind of come to us and say, this is what I'm wanting to work on, or I'm not sure what to work on, but I got a sense that I'm not quite where I want to be, and I'd like to be better.
Let's get some real time examples. We don't have to name names or anything, but I've seen you go into coaching meetings with youth, people in their young adulthood, and then even people that are just quite a bit older and professional. You want to give some real example of?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing to say is that I won't share names. Everything's of course confidential, but what I will say is I've worked with high school students who are just kind of in a malaise and aren't quite sure where to go and feel a lot of anxiety and a lot of a burden of sorts. And I'm not a therapist, so I don't dig into that side of things, but I've worked with younger people kind of find out what they actually value in life and what surprises them about that, and then align some of the things they're interested in to those values if they aren't already. And usually when that happens, they start to see the potential for different things they could do that they maybe didn't think they could get excited about, or would be a pathway for a career or something like that.
Maybe sports or different relationships or friendships.
Sure. Sometimes it can blend over into that. Oftentimes they come to me looking for kind of a direction in life when they're that young, or if they're a college graduate looking to get into the workforce or not quite sure where to go. Usually it's about life direction, which is, of course, its own broad term, right? Sure. So what that looks like varies from client to client, but I did have one client who she realized in the course of our work that she loves working with her hands. She had not known that about herself before until we were kind of exploring what she was interested in, and led her down this path to get involved in an aerospace topic, helping to build an airplane with a bunch of people her own age in a program that I knew something about, and I pointed her in that direction. And
that's really interesting, because I want to know like how you found out that she likes working with her hands for somebody that didn't know.
Well, we were talking about values. What are the values you've got? What things matter to you? What things don't? And we started then talking about learning styles. I have a background in education before I started this company. And so I can tell when somebody either listens or learns because they hear, hearing a lesson, or they need to read it, or they need to touch it, right? Sure. Kinesthetic learning, that's called. And she just kind of mentioned it as an aside that she's a kinesthetic learner. And I said, oh, that means you like to work with your hands. And she went, I guess that's true. I said, what other things do you do with your hands? And she was very artistic, very crafty, that type of thing. And so I said, well, have you ever fixed anything? Like taking something apart? She went, yeah, I used to take stuff apart all the time as a kid to figure out how it worked. I said, did you put it back together? She said, yeah, I really liked that. And I liked building Legos when I was younger. And I was the only girl who liked to build Legos back then. I said, it sounds to me like you like working with your hands. Is that accurate? And she went, just saw the light bulb come on.
Light bulb came off.
So yes, I work with people like that. And then I've also, like you said, I've worked with business owners who, for example, looking to improve their own performance, but mainly the performance of their office if they have a number of employees. And I help them kind of figure out where might there be some bottlenecks. Maybe it's in communication, maybe it's in leadership style, maybe it's in motivation. And then we identify that and come up with some solutions collaboratively. I very rarely submit suggestions.
You're really great at asking questions.
I appreciate that. Well, that's because here's the fundamental thing. What I can say about all of these examples, my fundamental assumption, actually, it's not even an assumption. I operate from this premise. Every single person has the capacity to find the answers within them that they need for their particular situation, whether that's for their life, whether that's for their business, whether that's for their employees. They just need to learn how to tap into that. And what I do is I work with them just by asking questions and introducing some centering techniques, getting present, ways for them to tap into these things in ways they haven't done before. They find those answers. And it's never failed for them to find answers somewhere about something that either solves the problem, reframes the problem, validates the problem, but gives them a little bit of a clearer path and a better sense of themselves in the process. And that's where everything starts, is within. Every single thing that we look for in life begins as an inside job.
Yeah, it's all deep within us, isn't it?
It is. That's where we have to start.
Yeah. As we're getting into this, like, first of all, you work with also business owners, but I want the listeners to know, like, from what size of businesses do you have experience? Have you had experience working with?
Oh, in the coaching realm and consulting. Well, we like to say at Bench Strategy, without sounding too arrogant about it, that no client is too small and no client is too big. So we work with individuals. I've worked with solopreneurs. I've worked with small business owners, medium-sized businesses with employees up to 1,000 or so. I've also done consulting with big companies that people would know the names if they heard them. Again, I keep those things confidential.
Absolutely.
But they would know them, household names. So I've done some work with those companies as well, depending on what we're talking about. Some of it has been consulting on workforce development. Some of it has been individual coaching, one-on-one, and some individual consulting. But it's just by word of mouth, right? Just by doing, that's how we get the word out.
So we're going to dive deeper in your business.
Okay.
But first, what I want the listeners to know, like, where does this all come from?
Okay.
I've heard your story a couple times, and I feel like I can relate to some of the things that you've said, and I'm sure as you're going to get vulnerable here, a lot of people are going to relate to some of the things that you've overcome and identified in your life. But where did this all start from?
Okay. Well, absolutely. And I'm happy to talk about it. If you would have asked me 15 years ago, I never would have thought I'd be a business owner. I never would have thought or told you I was going to be a coach or a consultant. I was in academia. I knew from a very young age that I really wanted to be a professor. Right? And I went to college, and then I did more college, and then I did even more college to get a PhD in 20th century history. My specialties are the Second World War, the Holocaust, early Cold War, all the happy stuff, right? As I used to say. And
you're so into it. You've written books on this stuff.
Yeah, I've written academic articles. I wrote an alternate history fiction novel where I changed an event in history and kind of followed a fictional story behind that. And so I'm working on getting that published. All stuff I love. And I thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life. And then I did it was a terrible realization along the way to realize that I was doing this thing that I had always told myself I wanted to do and I would be happy doing. And I did everything I was supposed to do. And I took all the steps.
You're
I went
committed.
to school for a long time. I sacrificed. I wasn't in the workforce in my early 20s like most people were. So I wasn't earning a lot of money. I wasn't getting started on retirement. I wasn't doing any of those things. I was slaving away in graduate school. I was reading, I was writing, I was sleeping, and I was eating. Yeah. That's pretty much what I did for a lot of years. And I loved every second of it. I was digging into questions that I never thought I'd get to explore. I was reading books. I was going into archives in Washington, D.C., in Berlin, in Paris, all these places, reading these old documents from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s.
Where's this all come from? Where's this passion from?
Oh, it started when I was a kid. I loved history growing up. My grandfather on my mother's side was a Marine in the Second World War, fought in the Pacific, and so I became really interested in that, and I lived in Hawaii when I was a little kid. And my dad took me to Pearl Harbor when I was 6. And that whole enormity of that really weighed on me. And when I found out that what happened there started the war that my grandfather fought in, I suddenly became really interested in it. And of course, I was 6. I had no idea the gravity and the impact that had on my grandfather. And so being ignorant of, his PTSD, I would just ask him questions. And I think to not disappoint me, he just told me stories. And so for the rest of his life, until he died about 15 years ago, he told me stories about the war that he didn't tell anybody else. So I got really interested in that, and then that kind of cascaded over into an interest in World War II in general. And so by the time I was in high school, I loved it. I loved the storytelling. I loved the human element of this. It really is, historians kind of study similar things that psychologists do, why human beings do what they do, and what's been the impact of that. So when I did this in graduate school, I thought, I'm just going to teach this. My mother was a teacher. My father was a pastor, so I was used to people standing up and instructing and speaking. And, it felt normal. So I did all this, and as I got started in my career, my life started getting harder, not better. Part of that was because I started to slowly realize that I did not like elements of being in academia. There were things about it I did not like. I loved teaching. I didn't like all the committee work. I didn't like trying to publish when I was also teaching full classes. I was barely sleeping. There was all of that. But the other problem that I had it didn't have just much to do with work. It had to do with the fact that I was struggling with addiction. And that had gone back till I was about 14 or 15 years old. And when people ask me what I was addicted to, my answer is always yes.
Just everything.
You name it.
Yeah.
Anything that I could get more of to push away or to medicate or numb the pain, the anxiety, the fear, the uncertainty that I felt in my life.
Where did this come from?
No idea. I mean, in the end, I grew up with it. As a pastor's kid, you kind of grew up in the spotlight in a church.
Okay.
Right? And you can get the messaging that you kind of have to be perfect, right? Because how you are might reflect on your dad, reflect on the pastor.
A lot of pressure.
Felt like it, and it was not anything my parents ever purposefully put on me. And I should say to all listeners, my parents and I have had plenty of talks about this. So we've resolved all of this, right? Sure. We've talked about it a lot. But that was a lot to grow up with. And so I think there was a lot of it in there. And I also didn't grow up really learning from my peers how to effectively express myself. I am a human being of deep emotion. I think all humans are on some level. But I really didn't know how to express it. And when difficult things happened, I had this message going in my head. If I'm feeling a difficult feeling, it must mean something really bad is about to happen. And so I either need to solve said problem before the bad thing happens, or I need to run away from it, or I need to numb the crap out of it. And so addictive behavior followed behind that. And I kept it very well hidden for a very long time. Again, that perfectionism.
Well, I would have never have known, spending time with you and just that you had a struggle like this in your past.
Oh, yeah. And that's actually quite a compliment. Thank you. I've had a lot of people who've gotten to know me over the last 12, 13 years since I really hit this head on. They're like, I can't even imagine you that way. And I'm thankful for that. And right. I'm really happy that I'm able to do things now that build off of the lessons that I learned then, and so kind of living parallel lives, right? And having secret lives. Really tough when you're in a front-facing job like being a professor. Really tough when you're married and your spouse doesn't know anything about it. When your family and all your friends don't know anything about it because you feel you have to keep up appearances of being perfect. But one thing, when I work with clients that are struggling with addiction or are concerned that they're struggling with addiction, is the truth of what is happening is going to come out. Either because you choose to bring it out and say, I need help to get past this or get through this, or something ungoverned by you is going to happen to bring matters to a head. And in my case, it was a little bit of both. I finally, circumstances that I just simply could not control anymore were becoming clearer and clearer to me. And so I brought forward what I was struggling with.
And how did you do that? Like, first of all,
yeah.
What year was this?
This was 2012.
2012.
So 13 years ago.
Things came to a head. So
things came to a head. I just simply could not. I was having a nervous breakdown. I was moving in the direction of a nervous breakdown from trying to hold on too tight and trying to hide all of this. And I was doing enough work, doing some therapy work that I started that was really showing me that I had no idea, really, what was happening with me or how to deal with these emotions that I had. I had no idea
you
what
probably
to do.
didn't know anybody that went through anything like that.
Not really, no. And so it was a very isolated feeling. But as I started talking about it more with a therapist and really started seeing how my behavior was affecting me and how it was affecting people around me, I realized I needed to get larger help than this. And so I finally had to bring it forward and ask for help. And that led to me stepping out of academia. I just decided I can't be in this environment. I was living back east. I needed to be closer to family, closer to friends. And so I needed to come back to the West Coast. And I really needed to find something new to do, maybe permanently.
Right.
I didn't know. So I moved back to Seattle. I left academia.
So you opened up to somebody.
I did. Several people. And this was the decision that we arrived at that was best for me.
So you gathered a crew together or individually?
A little bit of both. And then, of course, we all got together to talk about this.
Self-intervention.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
All right.
That's a good way to put it. Because, I like that a lot. I'm going to steal that, Chris.
Yeah, you heard it here.
Self-intervention, yeah, because if I didn't, I realized things were just going to get worse. I was tired of my own suffering. And that was the key. I was so worried about everybody else. But I started to realize that my suffering wasn't worth, for me, what I was going through.
The pain became greater than the addiction.
It did, right. The way that I learned it later in working through 12-step work to help, work through this was the pain that would be involved in changing finally became less than the pain of staying the same.
Wow. Well, we're going to get back to that. But
Sure.
We're going to take a quick break. So you're listening to Made of More on KKNW 1150 AM, stories beyond business of resilience and purpose right here in the Pacific Northwest. Stay with us and we'll be right back after this short break.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Talk radio that will get you thinking. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Made of More on KKNW 1150 AM. I'm your host, Christopher Erdmann, and we're sitting here with Dr. J.D. Wyneken of the Bench Strategy. And he's been getting vulnerable with us on his history of what happened in his younger days and his inspiration of where he's going. And so do you want to continue back where we left it off?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we left off was I left academia. I chose to leave. I got some help.
Sure.
And the decision that I made with a lot of help was to go somewhere where I could get the help that I needed. And so I moved to Seattle. My family was here. And so I moved out here. I'd always wanted to live in Seattle. My family used to vacation here when we lived in California when I was younger. So I thought, okay, if I need to go back and start again, or at least get my bearings, right? Let me go back to Seattle and start there. And so it was kind of a clean slate.
That's good. What did your first few months look like here?
Oh, man. Well, the first thing I did was get into a therapist's office. And because I was trying to pin down addictive behavior, I started going to 12-step meetings. And I did 12-step actively for probably 8 or 9 years, actually more like 9 or 10. And I found that really helpful, particularly early on, because I got to meet a lot of people who were having similar struggles. I thought that you convince yourself when you're struggling with this that you're the only one who's going through it. It's a weird form of arrogance.
You isolate yourself.
Yeah, and you isolate yourself. And so I met a lot of people who could understand what I was going through, who could relate to it, who seemed to be doing so much better than I was doing, and that was attractive to me. I started doing therapy with trained therapists on these things. And I just got away from this idea that I needed to be perfect in everything. And so I started over again. And I ended up getting a job down at the Museum of Flight here in Seattle. Amazing aviation museum. I love airplanes. I've loved them since I was a kid. And so I wanted to connect with something that I really enjoyed. And so I started off taking a small job in the store, in the museum, selling toy airplanes to little kids.
Kind of having fun again.
Yeah, having fun again. Reconnecting with that side of me that loved that part of life.
Was there anything else besides like reconnecting with the airplanes in your youth? What other things were you connecting with?
Well, first of all, learning how to better connect with other people, right? And connect with myself and be honest with myself and be honest with other people about my struggles. That was something that was continual work. I had to lean into that every day.
Did you feel during that time maybe it doesn't sound like you're truly connecting with people?
Well, I didn't probably learn how to do that more effectively for a few years. It took a while. But here's the thing. If not being connected with myself and other people was the equivalent of, dying of thirst in a desert, getting just a little bit of water, a little bit of connection, tastes great, feels good. May not be to keep me alive, not be, but it's enough to get me through another day. So yeah, I did feel that way for a little while. But the good thing about it was once I realized I could better connect and what that actually meant, I wanted more of it, which is something I've carried over with my clients. Right. Today, when I talk with my clients, whether they're working with me on addiction or not, I'll tell them, look, if you don't really know what connection and being grounded in yourself feels like, it's the equivalent of if you never knew what something sweet tasted like or something salty. If you never knew what that was like, you only need to taste a little bit of sugar or a little bit of salt to know what sweet and salt is from that point on.
Yeah.
So that's all you need. And so once you can sense that kind of connection, and by that I mean a sense of self, a sense of okayness in yourself, a sense of presence in your surroundings, and a sense of connecting with another person in a genuine way, you want more of it. And in part, that's because our bodies are wired for it. So when I was learning all of this, what I didn't know at the time was I had put myself in a pattern of behavior and thinking that was running counter to how my body was designed to best help me. So it took me a good decade almost to unravel all of that into a way that made more sense into who I was as J.D. Wyneken. Never mind J.D., the person who does this or works here or is the professor or has the PhD.
Not hiding behind a title.
Exactly. Right. Or a role or an image. I had to get comfortable with that. I had to learn that process. And so when I was at the Museum of Flight, I started there. I was only in the store for about 6 weeks when the person who'd hired me actually to the store moved upstairs to work in another department and said, hey, we had a PhD working down in the store. How about I bring him up and help work in public programs? And So I moved up and worked bringing in all these aviation legends from around the world.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun. I got to meet some of the biggest names in aerospace and talk with them and, Apollo astronauts, famous pilots. It was such a fun thing to do and felt so rewarding and was kind of this nice reset. I was there for a few years and then I left and sort of thought about maybe doing my own thing, but then ended up moving sort of back into education, but working one-on-one tutoring with high school students and middle school students, particularly students who were struggling in school in normal work environments. And so I started working with a company that did this and really enjoyed it.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for about 3 years and then moved into development. I realized that I liked doing kind of development work, like helping companies or entities build better versions of themselves, kind of like I was doing in my own life.
Revamping their business plan and the steps that it takes to go through that.
Getting to know themselves a little bit better. So, in some ways it mirrored the work I was doing in my own life.
Sure.
I don't know if I consciously knew that at the time, but
what do you think these people saw in you to get you to that point?
I think Well, certainly for the tutoring part, I had expertise, right? I could teach history, I could teach writing, I could, do a lot of those things. So the expertise part mattered. But one of the things that was so rewarding at the time was when I did the interviews, the person who hired me, who's still a very good friend of mine, said, I just love how you're able to just connect, open up, and listen. That's what our students need, right? They need people who are going to listen to them. They're used to not being heard at school. And that was a really rewarding thing to hear, and I jumped into it. And I loved the one-on-one. It was almost like connection practice.
It really seems like it feeds you, your energy, when you're connecting with somebody and helping them elevate themselves.
It does. And it's not just me. This happens to everybody. If you think about the best moments in the relationships you have, whether it's with a coworker, whether it's a partner, a family member, when you kind of enter that bubble where you're truly it's just the two of you and you're just connecting, you're talking, you're being vulnerable, you're being real, you're not worried about appearances. We know those moments. If any listener is listening right now, you can probably find those moments within the last few weeks.
Maybe
today. Or you'll recognize it tomorrow when it happens, right? And that's kind of how we all are. But for me, Chris, realizing this was like discovering a whole new reality.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that this is how things could be.
That this even existed.
Yeah, that it was even possible. And so that built momentum. When I was doing that tutoring work, that started building momentum forward. And I still had enough of what I had been trained in and my expertise, to bring to bear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved into the nonprofit sector for a little while. I helped a nonprofit that had kind of stripped itself down to the studs and was rebuilding, that worked in the aerospace field, helping underserved kids get into aviation careers. I started doing development work for them. They were based down in Portland, but because they needed to partner with aerospace companies, this is the center of aerospace companies in the United States, right? Not just Boeing, but 300 plus different aerospace companies in this area. So they needed me here to do liaison work, relationship development. So that's what I did. So I did that for about 4 years, learned a ton. And in that process, I was still doing my own personal work. I'd stepped away from 12-step programs by then because I just sort of hit a ceiling with what I thought it could give me.
Sure.
Still doing therapy. But then I met a human potential coach, which is a type of performance coach.
Yeah, tell us what that actually is. Go a little deeper.
Yeah, it's a human potential coach. I suppose you could call it a type of life coaching. But what I liked about it was somatically based. This wasn't something that was woo-woo. It was based in neuroscience. And the fundamental premise of it is we can tap into that part of our neurological system. We normally know what? Fight, flight, or freeze. There's also a nerve in our nervous system, the ventral vagal nerve, which can actually help us move more into a flow state, a state of calm, no matter what our emotional state is, no matter if we're happy, sad, angry, fearful, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
That it's other than fight, flight, or freeze, we can flow. And I met this person just through some networking circles I was in. And I was having a conversation with her one day when I was really struggling with something and I was so frustrated. I was like, you know what? I've done all this therapy. I've done 12-step programs. I've been open and willing to really take a look at myself. And I still find myself getting wrapped around the axle around several things in my life. And I don't know what's happening. And I'm so frustrated.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. And it should.
Yeah.
It should. This is a human struggle.
That's something we all or most of us go through.
We will all go through in some way, shape, or form. We're aware of it or not. And so I was talking to her and, texting with her actually. And she said, how about we talk in 15 minutes? I said, sure. And so she called me in 15 minutes later and all of a sudden I just downloaded like for 2 hours, all the things that I was struggling with. And at the end of the 2 hours, just because she asked me some really insightful questions that I'd never considered.
What's one question that was super insightful?
Why is that a problem? Just something I was struggling with. Why is that a problem? It's the story you're telling yourself that's a problem. And she helped me see that what I was struggling with was not the emotion I was feeling. It was the story I was making up about what that emotion meant. So let me give you an example that runs in with clients. I've had clients come to me who have just gone through a breakup, right? Really painful breakup. Sometimes they've been broken up with. Sometimes they're the ones who have called it off.
Sure.
And they're feeling what you would expect to feel. Deep sadness, maybe some regret, confusion, anger, depending on the circumstance, betrayal, all very legitimate. right? Very normal things to feel in those circumstances, and they should be felt, right? So they should feel sad. They should, they should struggle with it. It's difficult. However, if those same people start saying, because I'm feeling all those things, this means I'm destined to be alone, or I am unlovable, right? Or I always pick the wrong person, right? Or no one understands me. That's a story, right? That has no basis in reality. You can't prove it one way or the other, and there's no way to know if you're unlovable. There's no way to know if you're always going to be alone. You'd have to be able to read the future. So what ends up happening with them is what was happening with me. I was having emotional responses to things that weren't actually happening. And it was making my situation worse.
Making stories up.
And so this type of coaching focuses first and foremost on getting centered, recognizing that your emotions are not your enemy, getting into that ventral vagal kind of flow state through breathing techniques, through relaxation techniques, emotional integration, and then recognizing those stories and not fighting them, not pushing them down, but just not feeding them, and recognizing that we all make them up. And we make them up because it matters, right? We want to be partnered. We want to be connected. Sure. We want to love someone. We want someone to love us. It can be around work. We want to feel valued at work. We want to be seen. We want to know we're making a contribution, right? We want to know we're respected.
Right.
This can be in anything. But if we make up stories about them, we're actually making it harder on ourselves than it needs to be. And so I was having emotional responses and getting wrapped around the axle around things that weren't actually happening. And so
just imagination.
It was imagination. And by the end of that 2-hour conversation that I initially had with that coach, I felt more connected. I had more awareness. I was thinking about things that I'd never considered before. I had a much better view of myself and what was happening around me than I'd ever had. And I said, I want more of this, please, right? And so I ended up working with that coach for the next 3 years. And about a year and a half into it, it was a great relationship. I worked really well with her. She's suggesting, you know what, JD? She said, I wonder if you should do the program that I did to be a coach.
Yeah.
I think you would do really well at it. You have a lot of life experience in that regard. But also, even if you did nothing with it, going through the learning process, since I'm a learner, right? I went to school forever. Should go through the learning process and see what it brings you personally. Well, so I did that.
And what did it bring you?
It brought me to this career path. It actually turned out to be something that I felt so comfortable in because what I realized is it was the only thing I had ever encountered in my life that was bringing every part of my life experience under the same umbrella. My education, my experience, my expertise, right? My own journey through addiction, my own journey through, increased self-awareness, my own journey through coaching, my own experience of getting better connected with myself and other people. All of a sudden, here it all was. And not only did I really enjoy it, but I seemed to really be able to help some people when I was going through training and, working on each other. And I was working with people from around the world. I was working with people that were going to be coaches in Dubai and in France and in South America and Australia. One of my closest friends still from that cohort is in Melbourne, Australia, right?
Oh, really?
And yeah. So
what year was this when you were finishing up?
Oh boy, 2000. It was on the other side of COVID. So must have been 2022.
2022. You went through this coaching program.
Yeah.
What were you doing for work at this point in time?
By then, I was at Airway Science. I was working in the nonprofit sector that I described earlier. So I did this in part with the support of that nonprofit so that I could then coach some kids. Right?
So everything's coming together right here again.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for that clarification because, it was all kind of coming together under that. And then the nonprofit kind of fell on hard times for a lot of different reasons, and none of which had anything to do with my work or really anything like that. And so I started to realize that, you know what, in order to make sure that I'm where I want to be financially secure, I need to have some other options. But I also had realized in the course of coaching that I really liked doing this one-on-one. It reminded me of teaching in the sense when I taught in the classroom, nobody was telling me what to do. I got to create my own curriculum. Right. I got to go where I wanted to go. And even though I was, working for a university.
You were the creative.
I was the creative and I was the one in charge and I answered to me, right? For the most part, at least in the area that I really enjoyed. So I wanted to go back to that, right? Not because I didn't have good bosses, but I really wanted to call my own shots again. And so I thought, what could I do with this, right? I'm doing business networking and had been doing that since I was doing the tutoring job. I said, I know all these people who could help me build a business and people that I've connected with, right?
Sure.
People who know me. And so that's where I went. And so the bench strategy was born. And yeah, it's sort of been growing in some different ways, going in some different directions, some of which I was looking for, some of which were unexpected. But that was, let's see, just about 2 years ago.
About 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I just got to say, like, through all the experience that you've shared, and it's easy to see that you got a brilliant mind.
Oh, appreciate that.
Yeah, very analytical and also very personable. So you're a person that, I think is rare breed, because like as smart as you are analytically with books and all that, you have such an innate knowledge and appreciation for people, how they feel, and you have street smarts.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'll say really quickly on that, thank you for all of that. What I will say though is, when it came to brain smarts, the brain smarts I had just as much as anybody could. And the fact of the matter is that didn't save me from destructive behavior. That didn't help me. That's not what really connected me with me. It was learning to understand, recognize, name, feel, and contain my emotional responses. I had to learn all of that. Whatever benefit has come out for me, for clients, for people in my relationships, has everything to do with me bringing that component online. The emotional connection first with myself. It has to start with me. If I can't connect with me, if I don't know who I am, if I don't know what I'm about, if I can't regulate my emotions, if I can't accept who I am, where I am, when I am, I cannot effectively connect with other people in the same way.
And that's what we're here for.
That is what we're here for.
I believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's an important thing to think. A lot of people think the smarter you get, the easier this gets. Sometimes you can almost be too smart for your own good.
Oh, with that, we're going to dive back into that when we come back from this break. So you're listening to Made of More on KKNW 1150 AM, stories beyond business and resilience and purpose. Right here in the Pacific Northwest. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
I'm Chris Erdmann. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jackamick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdmann. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Miss a show on KKNW? Check out 1150kknw.com for podcasts of many of our programs. That's 1150kknw.com.
Welcome back to Made of More on KKNW 1150 AM. I'm your host, Christopher Erdmann, and we're continuing our conversation with Dr. J.D. Wyneken at The Bench Strategy. Welcome back, and thank you for getting really vulnerable and telling us like you're kind of like where it all started and how you got to that pivotal point of actually taking all that experience and hurt that you were feeling and took a class.
Took a course. Yeah, I appreciate that. As far as getting vulnerable, I can't ask my clients to dig in and do this kind of work.
No.
If I'm not willing to do it myself.
I just got to ask this question as we're starting to forge our way into, I feel like, a new era of life with technology and disconnect. And even I'm feeling it today. AI, what a wonderful tool. And it can really help us. But I'm starting to see ways that it could actually challenge us in ways that maybe we're not being connected with the message that we're sending out to people. And maybe as refined as it can be, maybe making some disconnect. Can you start talking about like where your coaching might help in today's age?
Sure. That's a great question. Yes. AI, and even more so than that right now, even though they're merging together, social media. As powerful of tools as those are, you can literally find out what's going on around the world in a second.
And I just want to say why I'm asking this.
Okay.
So today I sent a message out. And in fact, you were on part of that message.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah, and I wanted to send a heartfelt message because I didn't show up for something the way that I wanted to show up, and I wanted to articulate in a way that I thought hey, this is AI is going to help me articulate. So I'm going to type it up. I'm going to put it into AI, and then I'm going to send this message out, and it's probably going to be the best version. It's going to make people forgive me for not showing up, and then boom, minutes later, you give me a text being like, hey, that's probably wasn't the best thing to do. And it totally went the opposite direction of my intention. And so that's why I'm bringing this up. Now today I see how AI, as good as it is for making us communicate very well, it could also do the reverse.
It can, because with AI, we're putting into it what we put into it. So we're putting ourselves, our perspectives, our desires, our goals into it and asking it for us to help us. And so what I suggested to you was, yes, you were trying to take accountability, right, for not showing up the way you wanted to. But the way it came across was you were more concerned about your image and how you looked rather than the accountability piece. Now, I didn't know if that was true or not.
Sure.
But that's just how it read. And to me, I was like, okay, this reads like something out of AI, right?
He called me.
Right.
He called me on it.
And it was, which I understood, right? Because you want to say it well, right? And that type of thing. But instead, what it did is obscured how you were really feeling. And you were really genuinely wishing you had shown up differently and shown up better. And I asked you the question, why didn't you just say that? Why didn't you just say sorry? Why didn't you just say, I apologize for that?
Yeah.
And I was chuckling when you were talking about this, not because I'm laughing at it, but because this is such a thing all of us do.
Yeah.
We all care about our image. We all feel bad. We all want to I really want to clean that up, but it feels so gross to be in it, and I just want it to be done.
I just want to fix it.
Just want to fix it. I get that, right? So the reason I was chuckling about it, both right now when you were talking about it and when we were talking, I relate. I can relate.
Yeah.
And everybody can, right?
Yeah.
So it certainly wasn't a judgment then, and it's not a judgment now. But here's the thing. With social media, it is. Social media and AI, they can be great tools, but for the fact of the matter is when it comes to really connecting with people, they are proven by study after study after study to be more of a hindrance than just simply calling somebody on the phone or sitting down with them in person.
Sure.
Or just looking them in the eye, because they are tools that are meant to streamline us in certain directions. Social media, of course, is meant to use algorithms to keep putting in front of us the things that it is learning we like to look at.
Sure.
And if one of the things we're looking to look at is how we can minimize pain, how we can avoid accountability, how we can, try and smooth everything over to the expense of ourselves,
sure,
that's all we're going to get. And that's going to reinforce this idea that's what we have to do. And with AI, what can end up happening is, in the effort to sound the way we want to sound, we take away our own authentic voice. And here's the thing. People have an innate ability inside them to recognize when something isn't authentic.
Yeah.
We all have it.
We got a good radar.
And it's something that even when we started talking about it, as soon as I kind of laid that out for you, you saw it. You went, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like light bulb went off.
Right, which is a great thing. And that's why I told you when I told you, that's just the ability for you to say, yep, that's exactly what was happening. Now you have a clear example of the difference between what happens when you're trying to smooth something over because you're feeling, you just felt gross at the time.
Didn't feel right.
Didn't feel right. And just owning the reality of something. Because as soon as you said that to me, right? Yeah, I can't believe that I didn't show up that way. And you heard me go, yeah, man, I get it. We've all been there. Suddenly the very thing you wanted actually began to happen because you were vulnerable. You chose to just own it and say, yeah, it was
embarrassing. I used my real words.
Your real words, your real you. And that connected you to you, and that connected you to me, and vice versa. And it was fine.
I tell you what, today, not only was it humbling, but it was like a huge light bulb that went off. It's like, and when I'm thinking about what you do and what you're providing and other professionals like you, today was a picture of a small fracture of what's about to happen as AI gets stronger and as these types of communication just get better and better and better. It's going to actually potentially make our human communication a little weaker.
Yes, that is always the risk. And of course, with any technology, any new invention, there are always two sides to that coin. There's going to be great benefits of it, and then there's going to be not so great benefits of it and detriments to it. And we have to be aware of that. And so that doesn't mean you should never use AI again.
Sure.
And it doesn't mean you should never use AI to help you find the right words for a certain thing. But if you can add in now I want to be authentic in this. And the fact is I need to own this.
Yeah.
So, hey, AI, don't sugarcoat this.
Yeah.
Make it honest. Help me make it sound clear. And then if you know what your actual voice is, how you actually feel, you can take a look at that and go, okay, that's okay.
And you could edit it.
You can edit it. And
Yeah.
then you can add it in.
And you could probably sit on it for a while.
You can.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't need to be right away.
Exactly. But we want it to be because we want the discomfort to go away. And so much of my coaching, no matter who it is or what it's about, is about helping people recognize that their bodies internally have the ability to get comfortable with discomfort. And that is how we build resilience and grow.
Well, thank you for your input on this. This
Sure.
is pretty amazing.
Thank you for being honest about it and talking about it on the air. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us about where your business is today?
Sure.
And where you want it to go?
Okay. Well, here's the interesting thing. I want this business to go in the direction where I'm able to help the people that are looking for this kind of help
And
in
you have
the
two
best way I
businesses.
can. More or less, it's two different prongs.
Yeah.
On the coaching side, doing the very thing we're talking about on an individual level or with small groups, companies, I love to do.
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to do that. And I do try to meet people exactly where they're at. I don't do no two programs, quote unquote, that I do look exactly the same. I may have some common tools that I bring in, but I craft everything for the individual client because the individual client is unique in of themselves. Right? And I'm trying to help them see themselves better. So it has to be about them. Now, the one area of the business that's grown that has surprised me, but it's directly connected to this, comes out of the podcast of mine that you mentioned earlier, Staying Power, which started a few years ago. And my friend and your friend and another human potential coach, Ashley Kniebel, joins me on that. And of course, if any of you haven't heard it.
We should shout out to Ashley.
Yeah, shout out to Ashley. The straw that stirs the drink on that show.
You got to listen to her. She's got such a wonderful personality and a great laugh.
She does. Yeah. She's, I call her a pocket ninja.
A pocket ninja. What's a pocket ninja?
She's small and she's full of fury. She's also
she's a black belt.
Almost a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So she's not somebody to be trifled with on a lot of levels, but she's an excellent coach, an even better person. And we started Staying Power to essentially talk about the very things you and I have just spent the last few minutes talking about.
Yeah.
How to build resilience. The tagline for the show is for a better life. How do we build a better life? And that can look like a lot of things.
Well, how do they find you?
And wherever you get your podcasts, just look for Staying Power. Hubbard Radio produces it, the same producer for Made of More.
Yeah.
They produce it, and so you can find it that way. It's got a picture of me and Ashley on the front.
I try to listen to it every week, and I tell you what, I know a lot more about him than he actually thinks.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But that's part of the story, right?
Yeah.
Is, again, if I want clients to learn how to be known to themselves and to others, I have to show it myself, right? I can't coach from a position I've never been in. I can't. Otherwise, it's just speculating. So I have to be open to that, and I have to do my own journey. So that podcast realm, though, that podcast has been super fun to do. It's getting traction. It's getting more listeners. And Ashley and I hatched this idea of what if we started doing more podcasts and helping find and develop new talent that was kind of in the same realm, developing resilience, building a better life, really getting through stories, individual ones of connection, that type of thing, because there's so many different ways to do it. And so we've produced a couple of shows so far and in the process of doing that. And we have a few more coming online pretty soon that should be really interesting. I'm not going to tease those just yet. But, this show is one of them.
Yeah.
We got really excited about what you were doing, and clearly you resonate with this, and that was clear to us. I loved the idea of talking to entrepreneurs, right? I mean, we both jumped
Be an
in
entrepreneur yourself.
Be an entrepreneur myself, right? There's a lot to learn, and it's been really fun. And I see a lot of what you're going through right now, remembering being in that, starting out, trying to get the right cadence, wanted to do
There's
really
some growing
good job.
pains doing this.
There is. And yet the vulnerability of just getting out and putting your voice out there is key. And I've realized recently that where I want my business to go is I want to be helping anybody, anywhere, in various ways, find, use, and project their voice.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
You're doing a good job doing it.
Thank you. Hopefully I can do that in the coach. They can find their voice with themselves and within their life. With podcasts, getting their voice on the things that matter to them and putting it out in the world. And with the writing that I do, same type of thing.
Find, use, and project their voice. Is that your tagline?
It'd be a good one.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal it.
Yeah.
Again, it's the second thing I'm going to steal from you. The first one was a self-intervention. That was pretty good.
We're just coming to stuff right on the spot here.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'll write it down a little bit later. But that's what I hope for, and that's where I see things going. And what's interesting, Chris, is, and I know you've seen this in your own work, and I know you're seeing it in doing the show, when you really connect with people, all of a sudden the things you're looking for seem to find you, right? more clients, the type of clients you're looking for, the type of connections you're looking for.
Why is that?
I can't explain it. A lot of people think that's where this kind of stuff goes into the woo-woo realm, but I don't think so. I think what ends up happening is we can start making our own luck. The writer Joseph Campbell, who wrote, he talked about the hero's journey and his writer's philosopher. He always emphasized that, you made your own luck by putting out all the things that you're doing that are that natural part of you and allowing those things to find you, because you can't track where it's all going to go.
No.
When you and I are on the air, we don't know who's going to hear it. Not specific.
I have no idea.
We have no idea. We don't know who's going to hear it and respond to it or when it's going to arrive, right? We could record an episode today that somebody hears in 18 months.
And what section of the episode they're going to resonate with.
Right, exactly. And suddenly what may come from that. And so I remember hearing talking about Joseph Campbell, I remember hearing a Hollywood screenwriter talking about this movie that he got made, that he sent out 300 copies of this. It got rejected 299 times.
Wow.
And the one that did pick it up, he was really grateful for. Everybody else thought it was just too, not going to work.
Right.
It was an Academy Award winning film. I don't remember the film, so don't ask. But it was an Academy Award winning film. And when they asked him, how did you get so lucky? He said, because I sent out 300, not 3.
Right.
Make your own luck. So how often do you put out from this position of connection what your mission is or what your purpose is or what your business is? The more you put that out, the more opportunities you develop beyond your own ability to control, which is key, opportunities that may come to you. So I think it's in there somewhere. I don't think it's some mystical mystery. I really don't. If it is, great, no problem. But in the type of work I do, we go with what we know. And what we know is you put those things out there, it's seemingly there's a relationship between putting those things out there and getting back what you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, when you're going to send energy out there, you're going to get energy back somehow.
That is true. That part is true. The energy that we put out towards another person, they're going to pick up on and probably reflect it back or avoid it or, kind of thing.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. It was a great question.
Yeah. I want to give you a little bit of space to just, talk about Staying Power just a little bit more and what that mission is a little bit further.
Okay. So the podcast or the network?
Either or.
Either one.
Yeah.
The Staying Power podcast is the flagship show of what we're calling the Staying Power Network. And we're building a series of shows under that banner that fit under, helping people build better lives, resilience, getting to people's stories, focusing on connection, lives of value and meaning, right? It's one reason why we support and produce your show. It's another one why we do Diaspora, which is a show focusing on the experiences of immigrants from India and the Asian subcontinent in the States and in Canada. That's why the other ones that are coming on will have a similar theme. But we also will produce podcasts for people looking to do them for a multitude of different things, particularly in business, corporate ones, and we can do them for any business of any size. They don't just have to be like radio show and podcasts. We can actually do them as standalone podcasts, episodic podcasts, long form. They could be ones that could be 20 minutes long, ones could be an hour and a half long, or even longer, as some are. We can do a lot of those things. The idea is, in the course of coaching people how to do podcasts, there's coaching that goes with that about how to connect with themselves, how to connect with somebody else. You're learning it firsthand.
I'm drinking through a fire hose here.
Yeah, you are. But you're learning better how to connect with guests, right?
A little bit better. I think I'm better on episode 6 than I am on episode 1.
There's always growth.
Yeah.
There's always growth, right? And there's always glimpses of really good things each episode and things you always want to work on. So we do a lot of that as well. So if you are interested in knowing more about Staying Power, you can get it as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It does play on 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle every Wednesday at 4 p.m. We do the show live, so we have no safety net.
Good slot.
Yeah, we have no safety net. So it's whatever comes out is whatever comes out. And you can catch also Diaspora as well as Made of More on Wednesdays, all on the same platforms and others to come. And if you're interested in that, you can find us at benchstrategy.com. You can find out more about that, about Bench Media. And you can also reach out to me at jd@benchstrategy.com.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Dr. J.D. Wyneken, sharing your journey and being very vulnerable. I don't know if it comes easy to you or not, but I just want to say I'm very thankful for you to be so vulnerable on the air and sharing the story, because I know pieces of that really connect with me and make me want to be a better person. I've opened up to you, and I think we're on our journey to get better along the way. Yeah. So thanks for joining us on Made of More, where we uncover the stories of entrepreneurs and business owners making a real impact. Tune in every Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. on KKNW, 1150 a.m. Whatever you take on this week, own it, because you're made of more.
Thanks, Chris. Really enjoyed being here.
Thank you.